Hello and welcome back to Something Rotten Season 3, Episode 4, The End of Manhunt 2. Blake and I have manhunted our little hearts out. We have beat the game, we've rolled credits, we've said goodbye forever to Leo and Danny, and I don't think we're ever going back. Blake, how you doing? How'd you feel about this last stretch of game playing?
Hi, Jacob. I feel great. This game sucks. If you don't mind, I'd like to commandeer the show here right at the top and begin with a little history lesson.
Oh, yeah, go ahead.
On November 17th, 2004, Hideo Kojima released Metal Gear Solid 3, Snake Eater, in which a pivotal landmark everyone remembers, at crucial scene, every person you killed shows back up at the end of the game as a ghost, kind of to tell the player that, hey, maybe the war machine and video games just creates endless cycles of mindless violence. In 2007, Rockstar released Manhunt 2. And they tried that, and man, it really didn't work out.
If you want to talk about endless cycles, Manhunt 2, unable to do anything except repeat things that other media have done better.
My God, when they did that, I guess that's the very last level, when I realized it was doing the Metal Gear Solid 3 thing, I was like, why am I wasting my life playing these damn games? One day I'm gonna die, and I'm gonna be on my deathbed as my loving family looks on at me and be like, Blake, you lived a good life. And I'll be like, nah, I played Manhunt 2. I wasted my God-given time.
Let's just get it out of the way at the beginning. This is maybe one of my least favorite games I've ever played. Like, not the least playable, actively playing the game, whatever. I honestly have almost no feelings about it either way. But, like, the rage in my heart I felt finishing this game, just that it is exactly as stupid, if not more so, than, like, my lowest expectations at the beginning. I was just like, how, for everything that we have to say about Rockstar, like, they are at least usually competent,
Right.
Especially in this period. And the fact that this game just released and reviews were not, like, one of the worst games ever made upon release, really, really quite infuriating.
Jacob, let me tell you how checked out I was finishing this game. I beat the game, and then several hours later, and the cutscene, or the ending of this game is at most maybe 1 minute long. Not a lot of information given to you, and what information is given to you is not very hard to understand. I beat this game, and several hours later, I had to pull the ending up on YouTube because I could not remember a single thing that happened. I was like, I was done. I was checked out. I was going through the motions finishing this piece. I did finish it though. I didn't watch the game on YouTube this time.
You know what? It at least maintains playability, which is more of a question for Manhunt 1.
To some degree, it does play significantly better than the first game, which is not nothing.
It plays easier. It's the kind of thing of like every, the hard edges of Manhunt 1 have been largely sanded off in terms of gameplay, and so what you're left with is a brain with no ridges on it. It's like it goes down smooth, and much like you, I mean, I'm looking at like the YouTube playthrough of it right now because I want to remember the things that happened, and I just feel like I won't if I'm not looking at something.
It goes down very smooth, which makes Manhunt 2 like the fine whiskey of video games. But since I'm in recovery, like alcohol, it's something I must avoid for the rest of my life.
Yeah, you don't say fine whiskey in a positive way.
Yeah. Let's get into it. Tell me about this game, Jacob.
Okay, so when we left off, we had these two characters, Danny and Leo. They have escaped from an asylum. They are running from and killing people from this mysterious organization called The Project.
Inspired name.
The Project keeps trying to come to get them. You really just do that for a while more. I'm just like, what are the plot beats that hit here? So one of the early missions in this section is another mission in which you are playing as Leo, who's the kind of more chaotic, violent character, and you go through a warehouse and you have to torch both his and Danny's like medical records and histories.
Right. Yeah.
Which, if you'll remember the movie Fight Club, is something that happens. But with the credit histories, not with.
I didn't even think about that. Yeah.
Yeah, that Fight Club is all about, destroying histories, bringing the record back to zero. This is more like getting rid of a criminal record, but I certainly was still thinking about Fight Club, especially because this entire game is just Fight Club. So you go through, you burn these things down. I do think it's very funny that their criminal records are just like in a bunch of loose leaf papers in a warehouse in the middle of nowhere. I don't know how criminal records work. I assumed it would be more high-tech than that, but maybe not. Let's see. There's an interesting gameplay thing in this one where you have a gas can, like in Manhunt 1, but you can pour gas on the ground, and that creates an environmental death hazard, and then you can kill people with the gas.
I thought that was pretty cool, except like Manhunt 1, carrying that damn gas tank makes you walk at the pace of like a glacier moving across the ocean. Like, it is so slow.
They actually made the carrying body like animation so much slower than in Manhunt 1 when you're like lifting up a body to hide it.
I do kind of like that though, because I think it makes sense that like when you're holding a body you would move really slow, so it's kind of like this like little risk reward thing where it's like, do I take the risk to actually pick this body up and risk getting caught because I can't move very fast? But this gas tank, this thing weighs what, 20 pounds at most? Why am I walking like a damn tortoise?
Yeah, it's like if I have the power to lift a man and throw him into like a pit of knives or whatever the environmental, if I can lift up a manhole cover and smash it down on someone's head, I can lift up a gas can.
This level is really bad. You just keep having to run back and forth looking for these gas cans, and then new enemies will populate it, and it just feels like needless busy work, which, like, to the game's credit, it doesn't often feel like it's wasting your time. Levels are so short that you can kind of get in and get out, and this is the first one where I'm like, you are actively like padding your runtime for reasons unclear to me, because no level after it does it. It never feels like it's trying to artificially boost that runtime.
Hey, Blake, our podcast is better on Nebula, right?
Oh, for sure. Everyone knows that. Early episodes every week, bonus episode for every miniseries, all the good stuff.
Yeah, I just wanted to make sure that you knew.
Yeah, I mean, I edit the show and I have a Google Calendar. Like, I got it under control.
Looking at like the YouTube playthrough, it has like chapters for each mission, and this one is like easily twice as long as the surrounding chapters. Also, this is, I should say just in general, in this last half, I basically abandoned any pretense of using stealth in the game, because like it's both the kind of enemy spawns feel so thoughtless in terms of like they're just not presenting you with opportunities to stealth kill people, and because of the revised melee combat, you can just win fights. You can win like 2-on-1 fights if you have like a baseball bat or something. And so the number of enemies that I just like beat in 1-on-1 or 2-on-1 melee combat versus like snuck up behind and did the manhunt thing was like completely skewed in the loud direction here. And all of these levels generally have guns, and so it's just like, what's even the point? Why would I try and sneak around? This game is so not rewarding that I don't even care. So after that, we do have a somewhat interesting mission where you go back. It's called Origins, and you go back to the lab that created you, more or less. Do you get like, does something happen where you're like incapacitated and brought back to this lab? I'm having trouble remembering.
good game, huh? I don't remember.
Yeah, I mean, you end up back at this lab. Man, it's like, yeah, I feel like I didn't do my job, but it's like, hey, you know what? I played this whole
But
game.
also, in your defense, a lot of this game is Danny just waking up from being inexplicably
Right.
unconscious and then just being in a new location. Like it's very one note in that way.
It's God, we'll get into this. Danny's motivations throughout the end of this are just so nothing. So anyway, you go back to this kind of this lab where you were clearly like brainwashed by the project or whatever, and your goal is to kind of kill the doctors and just, kill everyone. It's a manhunt level. There are some interesting things here. One in that you are killing like doctors and not kind of security guards. I mean, there are like two doctors that you kill. You do the same move from the beginning where you do have to cut off someone's head to pass a retinal scan thing.
Did you struggle with that?
I remembered because in the first part, like, there is a way to cut off a head after you've already killed them. But it was, my guy was kind of like halfway into a door, and so I had a little trouble.
It took me forever to line Danny up in just the right spot that whacking him with the saw would cut the head off. I eventually had to pick the corpse up, take it into an entirely different room that was more open so I could like maneuver my character around him better. Obnoxious.
That is honestly, that is kind of funny though. It's like that's like a fun interaction for it. I was noticing actually playing through after last week when we talked about all the adjustments to the ratings things made. I was noticing another way in which the PC is the quote-unquote uncensored version, in that they talked about removing all the decapitations except the story-centric ones, but I was definitely using weapons that were just decapitating people willy-nilly.
Oh, yeah. The giant like construction hammer, if you use that, even the most basic kill is like smashing dudes' heads off on the PC version. Yeah, it's brutal.
So you cut off his head, you use it to open a retinal scanner, and then you have a very subtle allusion to MK Ultra. Did you catch this one? Pretty quiet.
Is it when you sit down in the chair?
Yeah, and he says, "Oh, Channel MK. I love watching this."
Yeah.
It's just so stupid.
Yeah. Did you sit in that chair? It feels optional.
Oh yeah, I sat in that chair, and you see what feels like a college project first take at a brainwashing movie.
It is exceptionally long, though. It's
it
the
is.
longest cutscene in the game by like, I would say, at least a couple minutes. And all the cutscenes in this game are about 1 minute long. This is the longest one. It's just a slow pan on Danny's face while the same 3 slides of a PowerPoint play in repetition. It's insane that they did this.
So it's like effectively what you're getting is like the Clockwork Orange scene or something where he's being forced to watch something that's like changing his brain chemistry. But the only thing that he's watching is like love, trust, hate, duty, and then it's a picture of like a sword on an American flag, a man hugging a woman, and the woman has like very visible cleavage, and like a video of just what looks like concept art of one of the kills from this game, where it's just like him beating someone else, and then like an eyeball, and it just keeps cycling through those 4 things over and over and over. And it's so I kept expecting something to happen, and it doesn't.
I don't know about you though. Watching that video for so long, I for one was ready to kill and fuck for my country, or perhaps kill and fuck my country. It's a little unclear what that cutscene was supposed to be telling me.
You know what this did remind me of? And actually, there's another thing. There's another bizarre thing that we'll come onto. It's something like this. Did you watch till the very end of the Manhunt 1 credits?
Oh, I don't know.
Because at the end of the credits, there is this very strange thing where it looks like almost like a Muppet. It's like a TV alien looking character that just it's like static, and the Muppet's like, hey, hey, and then it ends. Which I believe the implication is that like all of the game that you just watched was like a TV show, or like maybe you
Right.
were watching the snuff film, and then here's the programming on after it. It's very like it just kind of came out of nowhere, and it almost looked like one of those TV shows that would be in like a Remedy game, you know, like in Control or in Alan Wake or something.
I'm looking this up now, and this is coming from a Redditor Noodles Ate My Baby, who I assume is as good a source as any on this.
Yep.
And says Starkweather recorded his snuff film over a kid's show on a VHS in the lore. Not sure if that's a joke or if that's true, but
I mean, that's, you know, I think that is truly as good of a guess as any. But the reason that I was thinking of it was in this game, there are like TV shows, or at least there's one that you can watch. Did you find that Western TV show thing?
no.
In I think the next level, which is like in a TV studio, there's a TV that you can walk up to and interact with, and there's a Western
Oh,
show called 5 Past Noon that's kind of like a barely animated something. But it's another indication of like, oh, this is a Rockstar game, you know, because that's
yeah,
always been a
yeah.
thing in like GTA and whatever. Like you can go and you can watch TV, but it's just it feels so out of place in this game because the whole point of Manhunt seems like it's so stripped down and raw, and then it's like, haha, watch a TV show. It's a Western.
The level in the TV station, fucking cool. I
It's
thought
pretty
that was a
good.
cool level. Yeah,
Well,
really
yeah,
into that.
so let's. I mean, does anything else happen in that psychiatrist level? Here's one thing that is interesting, actually, is we learn Danny has like a kill phrase. You know, he has like,
Yeah.
it's like if he hears, I don't know, just some random sequence of words, his like memory gets wiped. And so they kind of disabled him with that once, and then as you're escaping, there's a guy yelling it through loudspeakers, and so when you enter a room, you have to find the speaker and shoot it in order to not hear that phrase, which is an interesting idea, I guess. I mean, at least it's something that's not just running into a room and shooting a guy. You know, like it
Yeah,
feels kind of
I
cool.
like this level. I think it's cool. The one part I didn't like is Danny getting up to like the climax of the level. Danny is incapacitated, then held in this room. He has no weapons, and there's one guy with a shotgun. And just getting out of that room was really annoying and frustrating because you had no way to like stealth kill him. You had to time when you ran up on him and like punched him outright.
No, that's you clearly didn't find there's a pen in that room, and that guy just turns around
Oh.
randomly, and so you are able to stealth kill him, but it still feels very stupid because it's like that guy just completely
Oh.
turns his back to you.
I just ran up on him and like started whacking him, and he killed me a couple times because I ran headfirst at a guy with a shotgun. But wow, damn it. Anyway, next level's cool. I want to talk about that one.
Yeah, so the next level, the next level is this TV station. So talk about it.
It feels like, you know what it reminded me of is Max Payne 2. There's a level in a funhouse, and you're just like kind of going like in and around behind the scenes in front of house, all these different like funhouse areas. This feels very much kind of like a carnival ride of like, now you're on the set of a kids show, now you're on the set of that western. Actually,
Yeah.
now you're seeing like where they're filming, and you're fighting through like the crowd areas. It's just like very fun house feeling.
Yeah, or my favorite Dead Space 2 level, which is the one in the like elementary school, and eventually you get
Oh,
on
yeah,
stage
yeah,
for
yeah,
like
yeah.
the school play, and you're kind of going through the set of that. Yeah, it's like,
You know what this level felt like? Was hey, we made those Max Payne games. Those, or we published those Max Payne games. That was pretty cool, huh? Like this level felt very reminiscent of Max Payne 2, which came out the same year as Manhunt 1, actually.
yeah, I mean, it's like I think the best thing you can say about this game is that it makes its locations interesting sometimes. It's like that's
Oh yeah.
because the gameplay is so boring and the story framing is so nothing that the things that I enjoyed were like when you're in that kind of S&M club,
Yeah.
when you're in this TV studio. There's actually one that I really like that we will talk about coming up, but it's like at least you're doing the same thing in an interesting place. When they're like playing fun music or whatever,
Hmm.
there's something to hold on to there.
There is such an easy universe to imagine where this game rules because like a lot of its skeleton is really cool. Like the thing that immediately excited me about it when I was kind of looking into it after finishing Manhunt 1 was the idea of one, just the game looking better and it having all these like very unique locations. Like the S&M Club is a big one, and I didn't know about the TV station until I played it, but I was really into it. And it just feels like if the gameplay and story could have delivered on like a pretty cool setting, like this would have been a slam dunk.
Hmm.
And unfortunately, it's just a game with like an interesting setting.
Well, yeah, and
Though,
also
hold on,
go ahead.
does this game take place in Carcer City?
I don't think so. I feel like this game kind of just it's just in like a completely different place every level. Because you like go to his house, so it's like, well, did he live in Carcer City?
I like the idea it's like a truly different city every time. Like it's where in the world is Carmen San Diego, but it's just this lunatic beheading people. Oh, sorry. It takes place in the fictional city of Cottonmouth, which is inspired by
Cool.
several southern U.S. cities, mainly New Orleans.
I sure didn't see that influence anywhere in the game.
Like its predecessor, the game is part of the same shared universe as the Grand Theft Auto series. So there you go. Thank you, Wikipedia.
Cool. Um, Also, it's like for every interesting level, there is one that's just in sewers or like in
Yeah.
an office building, and like so it can't even maintain the interesting thing. But the new like the TV station one is good, and if we really want to give the game credit, there is this theme of being influenced by media, by screens. It's like he was brainwashed by watching this
Yeah.
TV channel. So if you have that in mind when you're then running through these different TV sets and doing great violence in them, there's almost a theme that appears.
The game is definitely trying to play upon the same themes as the first game. It's just that the first game felt like it A had more to say and B said it in a more interesting way. Manhunt 2 feels like such a boring retread of all the same themes and topics that Manhunt 1 was playing at, like lack of player agency in terms of like video game violence and how we're influenced to do these great atrocities against other people in a video game world. It's just that like this game is so fucking like hackneyed in everything it does that it's
Right.
like it feels so cheap. I'm not saying Manhunt 1 was like some great text on like violence and human beings like relationship to it, but this one is completely missing the mark.
I'm really surprised at how much, and boy, don't quote me on this one, but I'm surprised at how much I miss the snuff angle. Like
Sure.
while playing Manhunt 1, I didn't really think that much about it adding to like the feeling of the game. But once removed, Manhunt 2 just feels kind of purposeless in a way that I really did not feel Manhunt 1 was. That I just kind of like, I don't understand what the point of the violence is in the same way.
Yeah, it's Manhunt 1. Like we talked about this a little bit last issue or last episode, but Manhunt 1 had such a vibe and such an atmosphere, and I think a lot of that had to do from the just like general nastiness and oppressiveness of the snuff setting. And Manhunt 2, by stripping all that away and then just like kind of copying games and movies that it has no chance of being as good as, like it feels like this derivative soulless game pretending it has something to say when really it doesn't. It's kind of like a Green Day song off American Idiot. Technically good at competently made, but not really saying a whole hell of a lot despite what it's yelling in your face.
It's kind of like a Green Day song off American Idiot. One of the first songs that Jacob had on his iPod Nano in middle school.
Now, one of my most toxic takes is American Idiot is Green Day's best album, but I have to do my best to not pay attention to a lot of the lyrics of that album because good Lord almighty, it's just some dumb shit going on that thing.
Here's something. I'm just looking at the notes that I wrote down here, and one of the kind of strange things, a thing that I like about the graphics is that the character will get very covered in blood as you go through a level, but then a very jarring thing is the next level will start and he'll be completely clean again. Which I was just like, does this mean that it's all in his head? What's going on? But something that I do think is interesting to talk about Danny's character is the difference in design between Danny and Cash in the first game. That Cash kind of looked like, if you were just like draw a murderer, he looked like that, just kind of like a stocky, mean looking guy without much else. And Danny looks like, and this is kind of the only way I was able to describe it in my notes. It's like he has the school shooter look, like he's this kind of put together, or because he's like a, probably in his 30s or whatever, kind of a like cubicle shooter that he looks like. He looks like the Fight Club character. He looks like a buttoned up office dude wearing glasses. He looks kind of nerdy or whatever. Right. That's like ready to snap. And I feel like that is, again, if Rockstar did more with this than they did in the game, there could be this commentary on how, the most dangerous killers, like serial killers or mass shootings in America, are happening from these kind of buttoned up white dudes. And the game never says anything about that, but it is very present in his design.
I conceptually really like the idea of Danny as a main character. And, he doesn't have, obviously, when we're talking about school shooters or kind of workplace shooters, there is a undeniable amount of like toxic masculinity at play there.
Sure.
But that said, Danny does not have the typical kind of rock star toxic masculinity when you think of someone like Tommy Vercetti or the GTA 5 characters.
I mean, it's like Danny isn't like a guy who fucks,
Right.
Like...
He's a much... Well, he had a wife and kids, so I mean, he fucked at least twice. But like, he's a way more passive character than a lot of Rockstar characters. And like, I think that's conceptually very interesting to explore that space and how those people can become walking atrocities, which Danny clearly is. And the issue is like this game is, like you said, just not interested in engaging with anything that might make it interesting at all.
Yeah, so it's like that, it is just like, I feel like maybe we didn't talk about it enough in our first episode of this. It's like, it is quite a difference going from Manhunt 1 to Manhunt 2, because it's just like, this guy doesn't feel like a guy who would be doing these kills. And, maybe it's, I don't want to stereotype the like murderer body type or whatever, but when you looked at Cash in the first game, it like he felt kind of up for it. And so the question I think that this game wants you to ask kind of is, why is Danny this violent when he looks and kind of talks like a normal nervous guy? And the answer, as you can guess from literally the first level, is that Leo is in his head, and Leo's, a crazy murderer guy.
Do you think a game that doesn't have Danny and instead you play as Leo is a more interesting game if it just leaned further into exploring like a sadistic character?
Well, here is a good answer to this, because maybe my favorite mission in the game is coming up, which is called Domestic Disturbance. Right. And you are playing as Leo, and you are running through a suburban neighborhood while like cops are chasing you. And in this level, there are also times when you will hear like children or like,
Yeah.
women say things in a house. They'll be like, there's someone outside. And then a guy will come out of a house and then you kill them in a way that feels fucked up in kind of the interesting way that the first game did, where it was like, oh my gosh, I'm killing, like these cops are not like crazy. They're not video game enemies made to be killed. They're just kind of a normal person. And the one time that I felt that Manhunt 2 was being truly antisocial in kind of the way that the first game was able to do was this level where you were in suburbia and you were like climbing over fences and you're like getting weapons out of people's garages and stuff.
Yeah. No, this level's really cool. And I kind of wish this was the game. Even just on from a gameplay perspective, like, again, it's another interesting setting. Like, it's very fun climbing over the fences of backyards and using that as ways to like get away from like the cops patrolling and everything. But yeah, it feels like this is what the game should be, or more interesting, compelling ideas to explore than like Danny is schizophrenic and he kills people because of that. Like, that's not a good story, but this madman let loose in suburbia maybe is an interesting concept.
Yeah, I mean, it's, it's the same thing as the slasher movie thing, where it's like, what's interesting? Seeing danger where you think it's safe. Seeing all these, like, nice white houses, and then it's like, oh gosh, there's a murderer here? We thought we were protected from all that. That's cool. That's interesting. Playing in these levels is doing something.
Luckily for you, Jacob, they made a game about that. It's called Hatred. You're gonna love it.
Oh boy, can't wait. Yeah, and it's like, so this, in these levels, you are not like wantonly killing dozens of civilians. You're mostly just kind of running from and shooting cops. But like there is the implication that people live here, which is something that you never got in Carcer City. Carcer City just fully looked like it kind of bombed out nowhere, and the only people who lived there were kind of crazy criminals. As a point of contrast to this level, I think one of the worst parts of Manhunt 2 is this idea of the project, which is these men in suits that are your main enemies for many of the levels.
They look so dumb. In a game that often feels like a Mudvayne music video, it's so weird to have these like dollar store like 1960s noir enemies walking around in their black suits and like feels like very pulpy. It's so tonally strange compared to the rest of the game.
Yeah, and the worst part about it is like they just feel like an enemy from any video game. They're just kind of it's like your Men in Black, who it's like, they're from a shady government organization and they're evil and it's totally fine to kill them. Like that's all they are.
They look like they're out of Destroy All Humans or Stubbs the Zombie.
Yeah, I mean, there's some also unexplained. Sometimes they'll have like a robot Phantom of the Opera mask. It's like there's one of the models, and it's like, what is this? Is he like cybernetically enhanced? Why is he?
This game's stupid. I don't know if we've said that yet. Listener, this game's dumb. Don't play it.
Yeah, and so it's just like, it's so, I think by the end of the game I don't know how real the project is and how much it is a projection of just like Danny's paranoia. Certainly Danny is kind of the villain here, as is Leo, because they're going through and killing people. But like it just it makes it depersonalizes everyone so much to describe them as they're all from the project that you just get none of the like in Manhunt 1 you described the there's that guy in the tutorial who you kill and the director says we put him there on purpose, and you were like life is meaningless here. But you did get the idea that life was meaningless because no one gave a shit about criminals. That they were like fine to kill. And here it feels like life is meaningless because these guys aren't people. They're just video game enemies copy and pasted.
Yeah, which feels antithetical to the idea that Manhunt seemed trying to explore. Like just by like creating a shooting gallery almost in Manhunt 2. Because it honestly, the game feels like it's trying to say the exact same shit as Manhunt 1. It's just not as good at it.
Mm-hmm.
But the way you just mow through people, like, yeah, life was meaningless in Manhunt 1, but, like, it was saying something in its death and in its kill. And in this, it just feels like, what if Grand Theft Auto, but more gory? Like, you can just kill anyone and there's no real thought behind it. Like, there's no repercussions. There's no danger or tension or message behind murder. It's just like, go fucking crazy, Danny.
Mm-hmm.
You got it, boy. Go get him, crazy-ass white boy. Like, it's so dumb.
Yeah. So then, at the end of the game, Danny, for reasons completely beyond me, starts he meets with his psychiatrist, and he's like, you're right, we got to get Leo out of my head. Why is he able to make that decision? Like, what?
I'm not sure.
What causes him to be able to be like, yep, I'm on board now, let's get this crazy guy out of here?
I don't even remember how he gets back to her in the first place.
It's at the end of this fucking awful mission where you're running through, again, like movie sets, but it's like you get a crossbow. You remember this one?
I like this level.
There's like zero manhunt in the gameplay left. It's like that mission, I just shot 30 guys with a crossbow, and that's what I did.
I had fun doing that, though, because you can one-shot them from, like, across the map. If you get a headshot, it's pretty good.
You can do that. So, yeah, so you meet with this... with this kind of psychiatrist woman. She tells you the thing that we all knew from the very beginning of the game, which is, in fact, Leo is a part of you. Well, remember, you get to a place and she sneaks up on you and stabs you with a syringe in the shoulder, and then both Danny and Leo are like, ah, even though Danny was the only one who got stabbed.
Yeah, vaguely. My brain was, I was disassociating by this point. It was weird when she turned and said, "I got you, Tyler." That was a weird moment.
They called her Marla by accident. So then you play this level as Leo. You find out, oh no, horror upon horrors. Danny killed his whole family.
No, just his wife. His kids are still alive.
Really?
Yeah, she says that. She says your kids are alive, and he's like, "What about my wife?" And she's like, "You won't watch it. You won't watch yourself doing it." And she like plays it for him, and it's like, lady, you could just fucking told the guy.
She's kind of a little freak. Yeah. So Leo / Danny killed Danny's family. Danny is then like, "All right, let's get Leo on out of here," and then you have go ahead.
You have one of two different levels. This, depending on how you play Manhunt 2, the last level won't always be the same for you.
Oh, well, which
one did you have?
The bonus ending, right?
Yeah, did you play as Leo or Danny at the end?
I played as Danny.
Okay, so there's a way, I'm not entirely sure, it has to do something with like how you play through the game and your like scores, so maybe it's only on PC, I'm not sure. You can play as Leo, and that's how you get the bad ending, and it's a completely different level entirely, which I thought was kind of interesting.
Yeah, so in the intended, or at least like, probably the canon ending, whatever.
Right.
You play as Danny. It is the thing that I feel like video games do when they're out of ideas, which is, what if the last level took place in his head? And so you're just kind of in this dreamscape. It's very much, the parts that you're fighting Leo are like the Pigsy fight from Manhunt 1, except 10 times less interesting, where he's just walking around and you have to sneak up behind him with a syringe and stab him with the syringe several times. And then as you said, there are these parts where the game suddenly tries to make you feel bad about killing people by like having the ghosts of people you killed come back, and guess what? You just kill them again. That's the gameplay mechanic. It's like, hey, remember this guy you killed? Kill him again, then you'll be healed.
Kojima could never, you know? I felt like this had way more to say about why I was going through this game for 10 hours killing these idiots.
I hope you didn't play this game for 10 hours. I think my playthrough was probably like 4.
It also like it was funny. He's like, "Hey, here's all the people you killed," but in actuality, it's like 4 enemies.
Yeah, it's not that many.
Like, I killed so many more of these dudes. It was a really easy level.
Yeah,
just kind of like sneak around and take them out, and it's fine.
Yeah, and then the most kind of like retconning, like, oh, this is what the game was about, is you find your dead wife and you have to carry her to her grave. And put her in a grave, which is, it's like the scene in Kane and Lynch where suddenly Kane's wife, who you've never seen before, comes up and then they shoot her immediately, and then he's sad about it. It's like, you can't do this. You can't introduce the wife one level earlier and then be like, this is what the game was all about.
Yeah, you carry him and like ghosts of Leo run out and start punching you, and you have to stop and shoot him.
Like, you just shoot him in the head and his head explodes. I did write down the wife's line, "It wasn't your fault, I don't blame you," which is just wrong. Incorrect. Yeah. It's like he made the decision to put a murderer in his brain.
Well, he is in his head, so maybe this is the reality he wishes were true, where his wife doesn't blame him.
I think that's giving the game a lot of credit, but yeah, you could.
Yeah, sure. But, you know, I need to rationalize spending a chunk of my life playing this game, and I like the idea where it's a little smarter than in reality.
I do think it's such a boring choice to have when you talk to her and she's like, here's what's going on with your multiple personalities. She says it was an attempt to create the ultimate weapon, someone who could just like kill and never feel bad about it. And that's why they chose Leo and put him in Danny's head. And it's like, you couldn't just go like any more interesting than that. I just feel like it's the most rote, like, you know, 40s pulp, like, oh, has science gone too far? They put a killer in this man's head. It's like, be like, oh, we wanted to make you, like, productive, but then this scientist was really fucked up and loved to snuff films, or something. Just like the idea that it was all like a military experiment to make the ultimate killer, when it's like, you know what? Soldiers are pretty good killers. Like, we have, like, snipers, you know, and maybe they feel bad afterwards, but it's like, you know what they do? They shoot people from a mile away. It doesn't feel like we need to, like, work on brains more than we have.
Yeah, have you heard of Chris Kyle project members? Come on, give it the program. That he would have done it for free.
So then the game ends by you wake up on a road in the middle of nowhere and you say, my name is, I don't know what my name is. And then that's it.
Well, no, he's like, I don't know my name. And then he realizes he has a manila envelope addressed to Danny, and the last name's different. I don't remember what the last name was, but for the sake of conversation, we'll say Danny Johnson. Mm-hmm. And he pulls out, it says, in here is everything you need. He pulls it out. It has an address, which is his home, and it's like, you live on, and it's literally like 123 Hope Street. Like Hope Street. And he's like, and then he walks down the road and the game ends.
Yeah, like into the sunrise. Just before that, in his mind, he does beat Leo to death with a shovel in a shockingly ungory kill. I kind of don't know if that was the point, but it was like really, he doesn't even bleed, I guess, because he's a figment of his imagination.
Also, no lip syncing in this cutscene.
Yeah, which is a choice, I think. I mean, unless they were like just completely out of money by this point. But it's like, I guess, again, because it's in a dream, he's not saying it out loud. He's just thinking it, and he can hear Leo's voice in his head. Whatever. It feels like it's not worth the effort.
If you get the bad ending, the last level is you play through as Leo through kind of like a catacomb area. You start with a gun, shooting him. Eventually you get to where Danny is, and you have a boss fight. Honestly, in a level that kind of looks like the first half of that Elden Ring fight with the big moon lady. You know, she starts in a library.
Yeah.
It kind of looks like that, honestly, or maybe just the Starkweather fight. And then you kill Danny. Leo's like, I won. He yells it really loud.
He really yells it. Goes on for like 5 seconds.
It's like the most performance in the entire game is just this one line delivery. I was like, damn, he's kind of putting his whole ass into it. And then you wake up as looking like Danny, and the psychiatrist, the white-haired old lady psychiatrist from earlier, is like, you've been asleep for 3 weeks. Are you ready to get back to the project? And he's like, yeah, give me a second, lady. I've been asleep for 3 weeks. Chill. I'm going to wash my face if you don't mind. He washes his face, looks in the mirror, and Leo is staring back at Danny. So there you go. There you go. There's Manhunt 2, baby. Signed, sealed, delivered.
That's right. And then there's no like bonuses. There's no concept art.
No.
There's no like extra levels. It just feels like a game that was, it's like, this is not me saying the developers were lazy or whatever, but it just feels in some like it was just shit out, that it was just like, I just feel no like passion behind it in any respect.
It's an impressively boring game, which is like the greatest crime any piece of art can commit, is to just be boring.
Yeah.
And it makes all the controversy not worth it, not worth talking about or engaging with. The controversy of Manhunt 1 feels worth engaging in because that game is worth thinking about and worth talking about. Manhunt 2, it's like you and me might be some of the last people other than dudes on YouTube who review PS2 games for a career. Like, we're maybe the last people who are ever going to take this game this seriously for the rest of history. Like, it's not worth it anymore.
It's not worth it.
It's just, and you know what I found surprising? I watched the credits. It is written by the same guys as Manhunt 1. Like, and I would love to just be like, what's going on with that one? It feels like it's reaching for something, but it also is just so impressively dull on a narrative and mechanical base. Like, granted, Rockstar North didn't develop this, but still written by those guys at Rockstar North who did the first game. Like, I just want to know what the ideas behind this game were and how it ultimately became what it is.
Yeah, I think, it's like this game is more ambitious on a storytelling level in that there are more characters who have lines, and like the plot is more, there is more plot than there is in Manhunt 1. And I think,
right,
it's like what we could maybe say is that like that narrative space that was left by Manhunt 1 having almost no dialogue and almost no story allows us to kind of read into themes that maybe are or are not intentional. That it's like our interpretation of the game is able to be wider because it's such a sparse game. And this game narrows the possibility space so much by insisting on this just like insipid plot. And so you're not able to give it the same generosity that I think we gave Manhunt 1 because it's just so explicitly stupid.
Yeah. Hey, do you know a better version of this podcast is available on Nebula? It's the same show, but with no ads, and you get to hear every episode a week before everyone else. And there's a full-length bonus episode included with every season. That means that if you're listening to this, there's at least one more episode of Something Rotten available to you right now as soon as you sign up for Nebula. We'll even give you a custom RSS feed. You can continue listening in the podcast app of your choice. Apple, Spotify, whatever the hell you want. It's easy to set up, and you get all your bonus and early content delivered right to you. So when you sign up using the link in the description, you're getting all that extra stuff I mentioned, but you're also directly supporting more episodes of this show. Get more Something Rotten, as well as everything else on Nebula, by going to nebula.tv/somethingrotten. So Jacob, I'm ready to close the book. That was me closing the book. Did you hear that?
The book's closed.
You wanted to play a game here at the end.
I wanted to play a game. I thought that we would not have a lot to talk about this episode. I mean, we did okay, but Manhunt 2 came out in October of 2007. So I just wanted to read you some other games.
Hold on. I'm reaching into the recesses of my mind. Call of Duty 4 came out right around this time.
Well, I'm gonna read you some games that came out near there. I'm looking for COD. I think that was probably in November.
Okay.
Yeah. But in October of 2007, here are some games that came out on the same day as Manhunt 2.
The same day?
The same day. Wow. Number 1,
okay.
The Witcher.
Wow.
And I guess what we can do here is just talk about, like, do you think that these games have more or less influence on the culture than Manhunt 2?
I mean, The Witcher 1 ultimately got there, but it's hard to say immediately.
It's like I might rather play Manhunt 2 just because The Witcher 1 is such a slog. Here's another one. Napoleon Dynamite the game came out on the same day as Manhunt 2.
We all remember where we were when that game came out. Who developed that?
That was developed by 7 Studios. Another game that came out that day, Time Shift. Do you remember Time Shift?
Time Shift? I was thinking of Time Splitters.
No, this is Time Shift, which is in that kind of invisible generation of FPS games that had like one interesting idea.
Wow. Okay, what was the idea in this one? I assume it has something to do with shifting time.
A classic Saber interactive game where you could slow, stop, or rewind time at will to dodge projectiles, steal weapons, and probably solve very boring puzzles. This, I feel like, goes in exactly the same category as like that game Haze. And actually, if you like this kind of thing, my friend James, aka Hot Cider, has a podcast called Bullet Time that is all about these kind of disappeared first-person shooters of this generation. It's a really interesting podcast.
How many episodes were they able to get out of that?
Oh, tons. Like, I did one on Wolfenstein 2009. You remember that game, like, Legendary? That's about, like, fighting, like, griffins that come to life in, you get Singularity. They have so much more content than Something Rotten does, to be honest.
Wow, interesting.
So 5 days later, Call of Duty 4 Modern Warfare does come out. 1 day...
Is that a Something Rotten game?
I mean, maybe all of the Call of Duties are.
That would be interesting.
I think, honestly, I think if there's one Call of Duty that's Something Rotten, it's World at War.
Oh, I don't know if I've played that one.
It's the darkest. It's the most violent.
I'm gonna add it to our spreadsheet just as a little note.
Okay, here's a game that came out 1 day before. John Woo presents Stranglehold.
Oh, the go! I almost installed that immediately after finishing Manhunt 2, just to like play anything else.
Anything good. Here's a game that came out 2 days before Manhunt 2. Guitar Hero 3, Legends of Rock.
Yo, developed by Neversoft, baby. First Guitar Hero to hit $1 billion.
But it's just like, it is fascinating looking at this list of just October of 2007, because 2007 is like one of those years, that people talk about. October 10th, The Orange Box came out. So that was Half-Life, Portal, and Team Fortress 2.
I believe that year it would have been probably before by several months was the first Uncharted, I think, as well.
Yeah, I mean, like that year saw uh freaking well, did Wii Sports actually come out that year? No, it was just the best selling. But you had Modern Warfare, you had Super Mario Galaxy, you had like 2007 was just such a nutty year for games.
Well, a few big ones we're missing here. BioShock,
BioShock, yeah.
Assassin's Creed, Team Fortress 2,
Mm-hmm.
Mass Effect, God of War 2, Skate, Half-Life Episode 2. So point being, if you're really itching to play some 2007 video games, which honestly, looking at this list, maybe you should, you can skip Manhunt. You got other things you can play instead.
God, imagine playing Assassin's Creed and then playing Manhunt 2, you know?
Yeah.
And it is
Probably a lot of people did, you know?
well, it is weird. I mean, this is an interesting generational space that it's like imagine Rockstar developing a game today that only came out on like an old console. Like
Yeah.
not even cross-platform because it didn't come out on PS3. It
Yeah.
only came out on and the PS3 had released a year before. Like the PS3 released in November 2006, and so a year later they make this game, which is I guess for the Wii primarily, but like Wii and PS2. That's what Manhunt 2 was developed by what is now the biggest developer in the world.
Do you think this was a game that began development as something bigger and grander, and eventually, studio closures, honestly, GTA 4 coming out the next year, it ultimately was deprioritized to the point that we got kind of just this wet turd of what may have been kind of a more ambitious game?
I think so. I think that probably the idea for this game was that it would come out in like 2005.
Sure.
That it would be solidly on the PS2. It would just be a follow-up to Manhunt. It would have been developed by Rockstar Vienna the whole time. And because of studio closures and because of this protracted development, it just got shifted off to this thing where clearly it was no one's passion project. Rockstar was making GTA 4 at the same time, and it eventually just kind of got farted out and would have been completely forgotten if not for the ratings hubbub, which is, I would say, this game's only lasting legacy.
Yeah. Wow. Well, anything else to add about Manhunt? How you feel about it overall?
Yeah, I mean, so, like, these two, is Manhunt even a series, or is it one good game and one piece of shit? And I feel like I'm retconning my own brain because I don't think when I finished Manhunt 1, I was like, this is a good game. But compared to Manhunt 2, I'm like, yeah, it was great.
We walked away from Manhunt 1 both being like, this game is interesting, which is enough to, at least for me, sell me on the idea of liking a game. Even if I didn't actively enjoy playing a lot of Manhunt 1, I never found it not interesting, which made me like it in the end. Manhunt 2, I don't know. I feel like we've spent too many hours talking about it at this point. We're getting paid to do so.
Yeah, it feels like a direct-to-video sequel. It's kind of shocking that some of the same people were behind it, because it just feels like it's like Aladdin 2 Jafar's Revenge. Like that's what Manhunt 2 is. Just this kind of thing that you see in a store and you think, wait, that's out? That came out?
2-man 2 hunt.
2-man 2 hunt.
I feel like we might get this question from a listener, because it seems like we always get these. But like, what would you want in a Manhunt 3?
I was thinking that. It's hard to say, because the most important thing I think would be what is the plot and how much of it is there. Like how is it can it be as minimal as Manhunt 1 in the year 2022? Would we like demand more from it than that? I mean, honestly, it's like I don't want to say you couldn't make this game today in that you would get, like, canceled or something, but I just kind of think there's, like, no room for a game like Manhunt in today's gaming climate. I mean, think about, like, how much fucking work you would have to do to make it. You know, like, Manhunt 1 feels like exactly the size of game that is appropriate for this kind of title.
Yeah.
And games are just so much harder to make now and require so much more, like, labor that I just kind of can't imagine, like, a Manhunt with good graphics. It just doesn't work in my brain.
I do feel like there are games, though, that have come out over the last, almost 20 years, I guess, since Manhunt 1, that do scratch that itch. Like, it's not like they live completely in a vacuum. Like, Hotline Miami feels like a good double feature with this. Honestly, Last of Us Part 2 feels like it's, like, not, obviously, completely different stories, but, like, it feels like it's kind of reaching at some similar ideas of nihilism.
I mean, that's what I was going to say. If you just took every animation from The Last of Us Part 2 and you put it in a different game, it's like, hey, if your dream for Manhunt 3 is you see the light leave someone's eyes as you stab them in the neck, Last of Us 2 has you covered. You know, but it's like, I don't know if I don't think that's enough, because we have seen that games are capable of making the light leave someone's eyes, and now I kind of want more from it than that.
You know what, like, if they made a Manhunt 3 nowadays, you'd have to watch, like, some poor animator would have to, like, recreate in all that PS5 glory, like, ISIS beheading videos or cartel videos. Like, it would just be so grisly.
Yeah, I think Hotline Miami is the perfect answer. I think that is the level of that this kind of, like, stylized hyperviolence has now moved into the indie sphere, and Hotline Miami is able to do so much more interesting things with that theme than Manhunt 2 was capable of.
Yeah.
Coming up for the rest of this season, we'll have a question and answer episode where you can write in with all your burning questions about the Manhunt series, and we will also have the Nebula exclusive bonus episode where Blake is going to take me on a whirlwind tour of some of the most horrible movies that he loves.
That's not true. I curated them based. It could have been worse, much worse,
folks. It could have been worse.
I was reserved. Yeah. If you want to, at any point, I would say, during Something Rotten seasons, if you have questions about the game or just comments, you can send those to us. We will probably save them for the last episode of every season. The best way to do that would actually just be to email somethingrottenpodcast@gmail.com. But if you tweet them or DM me on Twitter, like, if you want to send them that way as well, that also works. But if you got Manhunt questions, send them to us.
Yeah.
We'll answer them.
We will answer them. Until next time, I'm Jacob Geller. I've been speaking with Blake Hester. I'm never going to play this fucking game again in my life.
Bye.